Welcome to Sid Caudle from Christian People's Alliance. And Sid, it's all happening. It's not happening yet today, but there's going to be a further revelation of the Mandelson tapes.
Yes, and it's going to be interesting to see. They're actually saying that these tapes could well expose some of the inner workings of government, which would be interesting. But what are they going to expose? I mean, there's nothing wrong with inner workings of government, provided that they are conducted with integrity. But if they're not conducted with integrity, if they're conducted with Machiavellian scheming, which I'm afraid Peter Mandelson is actually considered famous for, then if that's going to be exposed, then some people could be very upset and very angry. I mean, we've already had the situation where it's now been revealed that Peter Mandelson was informing Jeffrey Epstein of the intentions of Gordon Brown's government from his position in the cabinet before anything was announced, so that he could engage in insider trading. And apparently he was doing the same to the Chinese. I can't understand for the life of me, now that's been revealed, why there haven't been any criminal charges, frankly. Because, that is absolutely criminal. Cabinet members signed the Official Secrets Act. I mean, you can't go round giving information of what's being said at cabinet meetings, and it's sort of like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, slap on the wrist. I mean, come on. I mean, this is serious. These are serious matters. This isn't just fun intrigue. Sorry.
I think, frankly, that we're in new territory here. The whole thing is a farce. This has been redacted from day one. Oh, it's going to cause problems on an international or a national basis. Wheel in the Secrets Act so that we can take out juicy bits that we all want to hear and that will sink any government. Is just redacted. And the ordinary Joe in the street is now fully aware of this. How this government have lied and lied and lied. And even the unions, the biggest supporter of this government, are releasing astonishing figures today, showing that Labour voters, union members, are going to Reform, not to Labour, not to Greens. Very good news for Nigel, of course.
Okay, well, if we can just stay on Peter Mandelson for 1 minute. You see, actually, the official position is that only the International Relations Committee, or whatever it is, of the House of Commons is allowed to redact information. The government is not allowed officially to redact any information from these files. So if they do redact information before it's sent to it's the Intelligence Committee, I believe. So if they do redact any information before it's sent to the Intelligence Committee, then they're going against what Parliament has passed. So, it's a very, very interesting situation. You see, I think, frankly, that what's in these files is going to be more embarrassing for the Labour Party than it is for anybody else. All this stuff about, oh, it's going to be problems for international relations. Well, it might be problems for international relations with China if Mandelson has been sending information to China, which apparently is the case, from the inner workings of government. But I'm sorry, you can't say, oh, well, better not say anything because it's going to be embarrassing for our relationships with China, because it will be proven that China were using a cabinet minister to get information. I mean, we're sorry. It has to stop. This stuff has to stop, and the truth has to be revealed. That's the reality of it. Now, as far as voters going to Reform is concerned, I have no confidence myself in the veracity of opinion polls. And I think there's a lot of opinion polls that are geared up to the person that asked for the polls, frankly. But What they can't change is the actual votes that were cast at the local elections. And the actual votes cast at the local elections, although they showed a number of people going to the Greens from Labour Party, they showed far more going to Reform from the Labour Party. That's the reality of what happened on polling day. No poll can negative what actually happened when real people went to vote.
Yeah, well, there's an indicator coming up, but it really is an outlier, and that's Makerfield, of course, because there's a special event on there. The nation wants a new prime minister. Vast majority of it is this way of getting rid of Starmer. It ain't going to be any better with anybody else, is it, Sid?
Well, yes and no. You see, I happen to think that that Andy Burnham will be a lot more honest than Keir Starmer has been, although there are issues with him as well in with U-turns. But you see, the issue with Keir Starmer hasn't just been U-turns; it's the fact that he's told us that, oh, everything's going swimmingly, everything's going well. You know, we inherited 11% inflation from the Conservatives and we've got it down. No, you haven't. You inherited 2% inflation from the Conservatives and it's gone up. Oh, we inherited a disastrous economic situation and we've now stabilised the economy. You haven't stabilised the economy. You know, the economy is now in a significantly worse state by every test than when you came to power. I mean, everything Keir Starmer says is untrue. Now, if you look at the actual policies that Andy Burnham is going to put into place compared with the policies that Keir Starmer's put into place, I don't think there's a lot of difference, frankly. I think they'd be largely the same policies. But we can't carry on having a prime minister that's just lying to us all the time. That has to stop and that has to change.
Well, whether this is political expediency, Sid, but it is a fact that regarding the rape gangs, that's been kept under the pressure cooker for decades while Andy Burnham was in charge of Manchester. Nothing was revealed there. I personally and many others have no confidence in him at all. But then you can go to West Streeting and you've got similar problems with Streeting. You can go to Angela Rayner and there are ongoing problems with her. Will a leopard change its spots? I doubt it. Is it just something from the left?
Well, the policies of all these people are, frankly, in my mind, completely unacceptable. I mean, I actually heard Angela Rayner talking about the cake. You know, we've got to give poor people a bigger share of the cake. You know, you've got no concept that it's business that creates wealth, and unless you support business, then you know the cake just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, there isn't just a cake there that's a fixed amount of money. That you know, if we take money off the rich and give it to the poor, we have a fairer society. That is a socialist idea, but it's simply nonsense. Well, all of them have got that idea. Streeting, Burnham, Rayner, Starmer, they've all got that idea because they're all socialists. So that none of them understand the economy properly, apparently. I mean, you know, but this is where Tony Blair, you see, has thrown in his oar this week because he does understand that, you know, business has to create wealth. So he's become very critical of all these people, frankly, and he's basically telling them, you've got to change your approach to business. Because when Tony Blair came into power in 1997, he actually agreed to follow the Conservative economic policies for the first 2 years, and did, with the help of Gordon Brown, and did. Now, Starmer has come in saying, oh, it's completely different now from what it was in 1997. In 1997, the economy was good and stable. We've inherited a terrible situation. No, you haven't. You didn't inherit a terrible situation. You're lying. And that's the difference. I mean, one was behaved with very responsibly. Tony Blair did when he came into power. Keir Starmer's behaved very, very irresponsibly and trying to take us back to the 1970s. That's the reality of it.
Blair really fell from grace, didn't he? Was Mandelson the start of it? Corruption, the dark arts?
Well, obviously, I didn't like a lot of Tony Blair's policies, but if we're just talking about the economy, which is frankly the most important thing, I mean, overall, Tony Blair did a good job on the economy until um, we had the crash in 2007, 2008, which was foreseeable. I mean, he did allow a boom and encouraged a boom. I mean, I didn't like his policies on open borders. I mean, that was terrible. And that was part of the bubble that he created because allowing free immigration basically meant he had more people coming into the country, which meant that growth was going up, and it looked as though it was going up by almost 3% a year. But it wasn't real growth because if you actually looked at growth per person, you got a completely different figure from the total growth of the economy. So, there was that going on in behind the scenes. But overall, he didn't do a particularly bad job on the economy.
I've been looking at something very scary this morning from the States, from a very good, it's a video from an excellent source. And they're not panicking, they're not saying this is going to happen, but it could be on the cards. Way back in the 50s and early 60s, there was a plot, if you wish, to flood the country with immigrants, with the poor on Medicaid, as it was then, still is in certain parts of the country. And the poor would bring about a change in the government towards the left, the communist left, because there's not enough in a system to pay. Borrowing would reach mega proportions of GDP. Just what's happening this side of the Atlantic now, opening the borders and looking at the figures, Sid. And there's two lists, one on the left, one on the right. Immigration. Who is good for America? And what contributions are the indigenous Americans making? And it's positive. The Scandinavians are in very positive territory. UK immigration is good, and it makes the economy buoyant. Then there's the other side, which is the usual suspects: sub-Saharan Africa, Afghanistan, etc., etc. And their actual contribution is very, very negative to the economy. They're a real burden on health, on schooling, on benefits, exactly the same as we've got now. And it will bring down not only the present government, but the whole ethos of Great Britain.
Well, I've come to the conclusion, as I've said before, that all these people coming over in small boats they're clearly not fleeing anything. I mean, that's very clear. They're coming over to make the West more Islamic, which, funny enough, Mamdani, the Muslim mayor of New York, actually said all these people that are coming across the border, in their case from Mexico, they're coming here on a Hajj, so they're coming here on a journey. He actually said that. So he knows why they're coming. the idea that these people are fleeing something is just proven to be false. So because they're coming with the aim of making the country more Islamic, they're not coming to work. They're not coming to contribute to the nation, to improve the nation. They're simply coming to bring their religion. And they're going, and because they're coming to bring their religion, they don't want to integrate either. They want to grow their communities and to grow the Islamic communities within the nation. That's their aim and that's their purpose. Now, if you don't understand what's going on, then obviously you're not going to combat it. You don't want to combat it. And by the way, I've come to the conclusion from the beginning, frankly, but it's becoming clearer and clearer now, that Mahmoud was just the Home Secretary, was just playing a game. She came in wanting to present herself as very tough on illegal immigration. She would send people back to countries where they could possibly go back, and she would reduce the number of people in the hotels. She was going to take a lot of tough measures as the Home Secretary to stop illegal immigration. But at the same time as she was saying all these things, she wasn't actually doing anything very much at all. And she was also opening the door increasingly to legal immigration. In fact, she even said she was opening the door for more legal immigration. And in this last week, she's made a statement to say that increasing numbers of legal immigration are inevitable. And she said there's no reason why people should have to come here on illegal routes. She wants safe routes and natural routes for people to come. So she's going to stop illegal immigration by opening the doors for more legal immigration. That's what she's actually said that she's doing. So this idea that she's tough is complete and utter nonsense.
Yes, we've reached the same conclusion exactly. I agree with you 100%. Even the Tories were saluting her for the new stance until recently, when the truth, as you said, has come out. It's all been smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And I'm going to be careful what I say now, because we're going to reveal the truth shortly, which is a picture I took in a government agency this last week, and I daren't reveal it at the moment for various reasons, but it will be revealed, but I can describe it. And it's on the wall, a great big painting of a government agency. And don't forget, this government in Spain is ultra left-wing, if anything, more left-wing because of expediency purposes than the UK government, and lies just the same. Now, we've got lots of pictures, say, showing the boats being filled with immigrants rushing through the water waist deep, being thrown on these rubber dinghies. Sid, 95% of them are fighting age men. And that's it, with ulterior motives, many of them. This picture, they get the same problem in Spain here. They show a rubber dinghy and the people in it. My goodness me. There's women, there's children, there's very few, if any, in this particular portrait of any young men. These are brainwashing tactics of the regime in Spain and in many parts of Europe. This is a poison coming from Europe and further east. This is lying to the public, and many of the public now, even in Spain, are waking up to the reality of what's going on. It's a takeover, as simple as that. That is not real. It's false, and there it is in a government agency. You can't miss it. It's massive.
Yes, I know. And this is the thing which I find so both totally unacceptable and also frustrating. because I grew up with the idea that the BBC News was independent and unbiased and seeking just to simply give the truth. And I was almost proud of the way that the BBC World Service was respected all over the world, and the way in which people in war-torn countries could find out the truth, because their government may well just be giving them propaganda. But if they could get the BBC World Service, then they could actually get the truth of what's really going on in the world. And we're proud of, that this nation was so standing up for truth in the way it was and standing up for true news. All that over the last few years is just completely gone. I mean, the BBC is now a propaganda vehicle. And what you're talking about, is just an example. I mean, it's because almost all the people coming in small boats are male, we've actually got to create a small boat which got women and children on it that we can film, to create the idea that they're not all men coming over. I mean, so we're going to create this idea, and we're going to give this what is fake news, frankly, because the BBC has become a fake news organisation, and it's tragic. It is utterly tragic. But thank God for GB News. That is able to actually give an alternative news, even though they're under a lot of pressure from Ofcom, who are demanding that you have to give the alternative viewpoint all the time, and you can't just tell the truth. You have to be able to have someone on the program that can lie to you. It's as well as telling the truth. It's but because the people of the left, which have to come on GB News but by Ofcom orders, are normally in a minority, the people there that are honest and truthful can normally expose them, frankly. So, it's a pleasure to watch GB News.
Yeah, we've got some important stuff to reveal about the BBC, especially a couple of whistleblowers that have had enough. They've jumped ship big time and are coming out with all sorts of things. Before we get to that, Sid, I want to read a commentary to you and ask you whether you agree with it or not. For too many years, our nation has been led by atheists, by homosexuals, by believers in foreign religions, and by men and women of greed and power, and by those who have worked actively against our Christian heritage. Once we had the greatest empire the world has ever known. Now we have little, and we have chaos. Who should we vote for now? God. We get the government we deserve, therefore. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. True or false, that lot?
Well, I've told the story before, which forgive me if I tell you again, but the first time when I went to Jerusalem, I went to the Wailing Wall. And before I went to the Wailing Wall, I prayed and I said, God, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to take a prayer and put it in the wall, which people do? And the Lord said, no, just go to the wall and I'll speak to you. And I went to the wall, and the Lord gave me that verse. If my people called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked way, I'll hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. And the Lord said to me, that covenant which I made in this place with Solomon, I was at the Wailing Wall, that was Solomon's temple wall. That covenant I made with Solomon in this place is a covenant available to every nation. Any nation that is willing to repent can receive that covenant. So, it was, to me, it's been very clear that Great Britain is fully able to repent, turn from their wicked ways, and God will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. And it's very clear to me that the the problems that this Labour government that we've now got is facing are primarily because they've turned against God and rejected the word of God in virtually every sphere. Most clearly rejecting telling the truth, which is fundamental to Judeo-Christianity. You know, in one of the Ten Commandments, you shall not bear false witness. And Jesus said, I am the truth. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Truth is so fundamental to what we stand for, and so fundamental to God and God's heart, that those who are blatant liars are bound to face massive problems in government, frankly. It's inevitable.
Interesting. Said we go and stray for a little bit because this may be a spillover from bad government. And that's the way our civil servants are treating us, if you wish. Now, your wife is a civil servant, and I'm excluding her and the vast majority of the rest of them, even though we get frustrated with bureaucracy at times. But there is a sizable proportion that are taking advantage of the situation, and that is flexi time and working from home. Now, many people can work from home successfully. Many people can't. Some people have said, well, it's really like suddenly becoming self-employed. You've got to have your own inertia, your own dedication. But many people don't want to become self-employed. They want to work for somebody else. But some people are trying to get the best of both worlds. And many of them are claiming flexi time, an extra 2 days throughout the whole year, holiday, a month, by putting in false claims. 37 and a half hours is the week of an average civil servant. But if they sit down, who's going to look, leave their computer on the go, even getting a very clever program that will move their mouse artificially, so anybody checking on them will think, oh, they're still working. They're even actually claiming time back from normal commute time because, of course, they're not commuting anymore. They are getting 25 days of annual leave legally. And on top of that, with all these false claims they're making, it's 50 days. Now that works out quite a number of weeks because there's only 5 days, working days, in a week. They're doing okay. But again, is this a reflection of the general dishonesty of the nation stemming from above?
Okay, well, it's not only my wife that occasionally works from home. I mean, she does work 2 or 3 days a week from home, and her employer made it very clear when she got her current job, which is in local government, by the way, that we don't care when you work as long as you get the job done. You can work from home as much as you like. And when she started the job, she was going into the office, and she found that virtually nobody else was going in the office. Everybody else was working from home. But it's not only her. All my three daughters are also working for the government in one way or another, and are working from home a lot of the time with young children. Now, just to take one example, one of those three children was, qualified with a law degree, became a solicitor, and was working for a senior uh, a senior solicitor and working very long hours as a commercial law solicitor, and literally having to put in about 80 hours a week in order to fulfill the job that she was given to do. And she was very conscientious. She put the hours in and she did it. But she realized that when she came to have children, that she couldn't continue putting that level of amount of time into her job. So very sensibly, she applied for a job with the government to be a government legal advisor and got the job. And now she's able to work 35, 40 hours a week and doing substantial amount of that work from home. She's very good. She does the work, but she works a lot fewer hours. And she actually told me the last time I spoke to her that it looks as though she's going to be made a judge. So she's going to be allowed to, which I think she's only going to be a part-time judge. So she'll be on the bottom of the rung, I suppose, from that point of view. She's not yet 40, by the way, but and she's going to be a part-time judge now while working for the government in a legal capacity. So, but she puts the work in, but nothing like the hours that she was putting in when she was in the private sector.
Well, there you are. You've had both sides of the argument. There's always exceptions to the rule. Their own moral compass, I suppose. Lots of people would feel guilty by not putting in the hours and cheating their employer. Other people would do it because, oh, it's the state, they can afford it. But there again, let's move on. In one sense, but in another sense, no. We've got a cautionary tale of people seeking residency in Britain. Wife, children, and she works. Husband, German, airline pilot, and of course he works. Can they get into Britain? Not a chance. We told them to get a rubber boat, didn't we? You get in that way and become a burden on the state. But they can't get in, Sid. But they worked out a strategy. They said, well, let's get a divorce. Then you can become a single parent family. And I can get KLM or whoever to get me in the country back door. They decided not to do that. They decided also not to do the Human Rights Act. They've got good ethics. There was a chance, of course, they'd get ECHR to get them in the country, but it would cost a lot of money. So they decided to take the only other option, go to America. And they were welcomed with open arms. They stayed married. She's got a good job waiting for her when her children are of a suitable age to be left. And of course, airline pilots, excellent in America, good terms and conditions, and they're needed. So we're getting the dross, Sid, and America are getting because they choose to do it, block the borders, only letting those people that'll be helpful to the country's economy.
Well, yes, because Trump has got sensible policies. And yeah, absolutely. He's now stopped all illegal immigration, which is interesting that, with a 2,000 mile border, building a wall that's between Mexico and the United States, where enormous numbers of people were coming across. He stopped that completely. There's now no illegal immigrants at all getting into the United States. I mean, some are crossing in, but they're not allowed into the country and are just simply sent back. So they're not actually allowed to enter, officially. So they're just basically held in a holding area and then sent back immediately. Now, so he's proved it can be done, and it's much easier to do it, frankly, with an island nation than it is to do it when you've got a 2,000 mile land border. So it can be done. And then, of course, if you stop all illegal immigration, the only people coming into the country are people that you approve and that you say, yes, you can enter. Now, this is where the problem becomes with the UK, because Mahmoud has made it very clear that she welcomes immigration. Anyone can come in, and there will be increasing numbers coming in, she said. So what the Conservatives did was to try and make it harder. They had a limit of 23,000, I think the figure was, that your income had to be in order to come into the country. So you had to have a job where you would earn at least 23,000 to come into the UK. And they increased that considerably to 35,000. and basically said, so in order to get a visa now to come into the UK, a work visa, you've now got to have a job where you're going to earn at least 35,000 a year. Now, which is obviously a pretty good job, at that sort of level. That's not going to be going into a care home and working in a care home. You're not going to get 35,000 working in a care home. And incidentally, it's not going to be working for a church either, because you probably won't get 35,000 working for a church. You may do with a few churches that are really quite well off, but even if you got a job working for a church during 35,000 a year, you're going to be pretty capable. You're probably going to be a pastor, and you're probably or going to be playing a significant role in the church. You're not going to be somebody who's just being brought in and as some sort of excuse and going to be cleaning the toilets or something, or cleaning the church. You're going to have a significant role. But you see, the Labour Party are now relaxing all those rules, and they're allowing people, especially the big loophole is that they're allowing people to come in as students that haven't got a sort of a normal university job, or normal university position. There's all these fringe colleges that are being set up that are Islamic colleges, that are set up as front organizations for bringing in students and then just being granted student visas. That's the loophole that this Labour government's almost encouraging, frankly.
I think you've raised something there that people perhaps are not aware of, but which is, in my opinion, extremely important. Universities are big business, and they've been set up to be big business, and they are encouraging, in many cases, lots of so-called pseudo qualifications, from nail cutting to media, whatever it is. And the other way they're getting people, as you've mentioned, is to get in as foreign students. They bring money, and they get more money off foreign students than local English students. Now, having said that, there's another money spinner. If you're Cambridge University and many other universities, but we've come across this at Cambridge, you can get special diplomas. And it says on the diploma that you are a sub-course, if you wish, of the main course, and you've got special qualifications in whatever. And there's wonderful certificates with big embossed and stamped, very serious-looking pieces of paper hanging from the wall. In business courses particularly. Oh, I've been to Cambridge University. No, you've not. You've just got a certificate that you may have done an online, very short course. There's a lot of corruption going on, even at this level, Sid.
You have people, for instance, who do bona fide economics business courses at many good universities. I mean, my stepson's just completed one at Nottingham University, and he's got a very good job lined up as a commercial estate agent, which he's going to be starting very soon. Well done that he's got that job. But if people are competing with him that have got false diplomas that are saying that they've got the qualifications, but they haven't really, because they're false diplomas that are then that itself frankly is a major issue. Plus, of course, we've got all this DEI, diversity, equality and inclusion. So employers are supposed to employ ethnic minorities as part of the diversity program. So, and if the ethnic minorities that they're employing actually haven't got honest qualifications, then that itself is a massive problem for the whole of business and the whole of the economy, frankly.
It is, and many employers are complaining about false standards, both sides of the pond. There's a big thing in America, let me tell you, at the moment about standards. You cannot fail. It's like Britain. They used to fail 5% and above people on a uni course in America. No longer they just say, oh, well, we'll write it off. Let's see if you can do better the next year. And there's a lot of that worldwide, but especially in the US and the UK. You mentioned, we've got to cover it briefly, the BBC. And we've had Rob Burley, head of department, Newsnight even, actually blowing the whistle big time about how the BBC treats its presenters, people in providing the news for the nation. Basically, he says they're being bullied into DEI, into transgender. And he specifically mentions this. He's had enough. After 13 years, he's off, and he's taken other people with him of serious note who are saying this, in fact, saying what you said earlier, Sid. This is not the news any longer. It's a strategy that they're putting out there. You cannot trust them. Ask Donald Trump. Is he going to get away with that monstrous fine? Or is it monstrous? Has he got it wrong?
Well, it's very interesting, because this court case at the moment, which is being lodged in Florida and has been accepted, it is proceeding, where he's literally claiming $2 billion from the BBC for libeling him on over his speech on January the 6th, 2000. And the BBC have apologized to Trump, but they are basically saying that it was a mistake that could easily have been made. It wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate choice to actually libel him. That's what actually happened. Now, a lot depends on what judge hears the case, because in America, unfortunately, the judges are all political appointees. So you have Democrat judges and Republican judges. And if a Democrat judge hears this case, then Trump will almost certainly lose it. If a Republican judge hears the case, then Trump will almost certainly win it. But the repercussions for the BBC are phenomenal, because they can't afford to pay Trump $2 billion. Just defending the case is going to be incredibly expensive for them. And the whole BBC could be bankrupted by this case, frankly. And if it is, then that will be either the government will bail them out in some way, which could happen if we've got a Labour government, or the BBC will have to go under and become a commercial organisation.
There are many problems with the BBC at the moment. Maybe this is a tipping point, could well be. Before we leave the subject finally, Sid, both himself and his fellow organiser in the BBC for leading political programmes, she's left as well. And they've highlighted a number of things. No debate on the Newsnight set. In other words, you're presented with what to say. It's expressed as the new activism. You shall say it. Well, it's not what happens. You've still got to say it. If you don't say it, you are bullied by the rest of the staff and by the leaders of a particular unit, in this case, Newsnight. Secondly, Stonewall, the style guide to anything that you hear in BBC News. That is awful if you think about that, but that's specifically mentioned by him.
Stonewall's involvement is frankly totally, utterly unacceptable. I actually looked up the figures, and government pays Stonewall in grants $500,000 per year. Government grants to promote DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, but in reality, to promote homosexuality and transsexualism in government. I mean, it's paid by the government. Disgusting.
It is. The reorganisation of the BBC about 5-6 years ago, I think now, that was a double disaster. It wasn't reorganised. DEI, you've mentioned again. It's changed the culture of the BBC, and it still goes on. And then there was the Tavistock files. Tavistock is alive and well, even though it was put down by an independent, inverted commas, inquiry. They're still changing and transitionizing children with drugs and surgery. That's awful, and it's backed by the BBC.
One thing that needs to be made clear about Tavistock is what they were doing is completely unacceptable. The court said it was had to stop, and they closed the clinic. What they then tried to do was to introduce new research. So they said, we're going to do some new research. And as part of this new research we're doing, we're going to try and see whether children do or do not benefit from being given puberty blockers. So they said they're literally starting to give children puberty blockers again based on research. But they've been rumbled. And the courts have actually said no research can be started until it can be proved that it's totally safe. So even though they've tried to start again on that basis, at the moment, it's not happening.
No, it's not. We have run out of time. Sid, again, very quickly, we go on to our sports bit. And congratulations to that team. London's more divided than Manchester or Liverpool, I think, because maybe Arsenal have not got the congratulations they deserve. A lot of infighting down there in the capital, but they celebrated and then they went to win the European Cup. Oh dear me. I'm going to read you something now from a pundit, and I'm going to ask you whether you agree with it. The brutal reality for these players, Arsenal players, was that instead of truly chasing a victory in the club's most consequential game for 20 years, they were preoccupied with trying not to lose, rather than seizing on the thrill of a 6-minute lead to put a shocked Paris Saint-Germain to the sword. Instead, they sat stubbornly on that slender advantage as if there was no alternative. And when the plan failed, they prayed for penalties, only to be exposed once again.
Interesting analysis. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I was reminded of what Didier Drogba did when Chelsea successfully won the Champions League, and they played for 1-0, and he was constantly breaking up the game, falling over, and feigning injury and goodness knows what, and he did it effectively, and Chelsea won. And yeah, I could see that Arsenal were playing the same game, frankly, trying desperately to break up the game. And what I didn't realise as well, I've never knew this before, we had a goalkeeper timeout where the goalkeeper literally collapsed and claimed that he'd got cramp. And this was an opportunity for all the players to go to the side and to get some instructions. And they actually said, "Oh, this looks like a goalkeeper timeout," and, because they had to stop the game because you can't have the goalkeeper on the ground and carry on playing, which you could if another player was on the ground. So yeah, but apparently FIFA are now going to take some action to stop the goalkeeper timeout. But yeah, there's no question that Arsenal were time wasting and breaking up the game, particularly in the first half, and it could have worked. It was disappointing that they didn't win on the penalties, but overall, I have to say Paris Saint-Germain played better than Arsenal did. And I think Paris Saint-Germain deserved to win the game.
New interpretation of the professional foul, I call it. Too much money in the game, but there's what we are. And don't forget, Paris Saint-Germain have got some superb players, Sid. And
Yes.
maybe that's your only alternative.
And Arsenal did defend extremely well, especially in the first half. And In the first half, they denied Paris Saint-Germain any clear goal-scoring opportunities. So it wasn't, there is a lot of skill involved in defending well, as well as skill involved in attacking well. So, Arsenal didn't play badly. I mean, when you think that last time Paris Saint-Germain won it, they beat Inter Milan 5-0, and they played superbly in the semi-final against Bayern Munich, even though that game, I believe, was finished up on aggregate 6-5. Both sides attacking strongly. Arsenal were always going to play a different game. They were always going to play because they are the best defensive organisation in the best defensive club in the whole of Europe. So it was always going to be a different game.
Well, I'm from the old school of Manchester United, of course, you'd never guess. And it's attack, attack, attack. And it's proved itself. Let's hope it starts proving itself in the Premiership.
Well, that was a game, of course, which Liverpool played, and it was very successful at Liverpool.
Indeed, quite right. Well, there we go. Perhaps now Mr. Slot has gone. Things will change there as well. Bit cruel finally, Sid, wasn't it? Getting rid of him after 1 year. Mixed results.
Well, yes. I mean, it was. I was surprised in a way. Liverpool started this season winning the first 5 games, and everyone was saying, that they're going to be champions again. Then they went into a very bad phase, but they still finished up fifth and got into the Champions League again. So it's not been a disastrous season when you compare what's happening to Spurs, who just escaped relegation, and what happened to Man United last season when they also finished right near the bottom of the table, and at times looked as though they might be in risk of relegation. I mean, finishing fifth and getting in the Champions League is not a disastrous season. So, yeah, I was surprised they sacked the manager.
Well, there you go. I'm an ambitious man. And next time I'm going to come back as a football manager and get sacked because I will have millions and millions of pounds. So crocodile tears, that's it.
Can I just say finally, I think what a fantastic season Aston Villa have had this year under Unai Emery, and they haven't been given the credit they deserve. They were near the top of the table for a lot, finished fourth, and won the Europa League. So they're going to be in the Champions League. They qualified 2 different ways for the Champions League. And when they became to Premier League manager of the season, Unai Emery wasn't mentioned as one of them. And this is Aston Villa. It's not as though he was managing Arsenal, which he did do previously. I mean, he's managing a smaller club, yet he's got a trophy and he's got the club back in the Champions League. I mean, to me, that's a tremendous success.
And don't forget that Aston Villa is Birmingham. Birmingham, as number 2 city in the UK, should have bigger football teams. Go on, I'll give you one line on that one. Why haven't they?
Well, I guess, it's over the years that they haven't had the success, but Birmingham City, at times have been a good team. But yeah, I mean, when you compare them with Manchester, for instance, that have got 2 extremely successful teams, or Liverpool with 2 extremely successful teams that are smaller cities, you may be right, but that is the reality of it.
Well done. We've faced reality today, both on the field and off the field. And we'll see you next week, Sid.
Thanks.